Last year I had the privilege of traveling with my son to America, and for part of our trip we decided to visit New York City, which I'm sure is the desire of most people if they wanted to get over to that part of the States. And in one day we tried to see as many attractions as we possibly could so he could tick them off on his list. One of those attractions that we saw was Central Park in New York City. And if you're flying over New York City or you Google Maps it, you'll see that there's this huge amount of concrete jungle. And in the middle of it is this wonderful little piece of green creation. And therein lies peace and rest and solitude. And I'm calling this Find Your Central Park because I was speaking to a client once and he said, Murray, my world is just so noisy. I feel like I'm living in this concrete jungle and everything around me. And I wake up and I'm almost distressed by everything. There's from physical traffic to mental traffic to small spaces to everything going on around me. And I just feel like I just can't catch up with myself. And I said to him, well, why don't you do yourself a favor, just like in New York City, and take time every day to go to Central Park? And he looked at me quite puzzled as if to say, well, how am I going to get into that space? And we started speaking about the fact that in our minds and in our physical space, we can take time out to go and rest and rejuvenate and restore. You don't have to necessarily physically go somewhere, although that helps very much. I'll talk about that just now. But we need to find our central parks in the midst of our busyness, because if we allow ourselves to be overcome by all the noise of life and the busyness of where we work and live, that we eventually become distressed without even knowing it. And our lives begin to sort of cram in on us. We kind of get this claustrophobic feeling. And I find that when I'm in that space, I'm not highly productive. And I find my relationships get a bit messy because I'm kind of just wanting to protect myself. I go into a bit of a survival mode. So a couple of things. Number one is become more aware of when you're becoming uncomfortable. Don't wait until you've gone so far down the road that discomfort is now wanting medication. So early on, let the red lights flash and say to you, Murray, it's time to take some time out. And I listen to those lights really early these days. Secondly, look for places to hang out. I remember my mom, when she was alive, one day she said to me, Murray, do you know where I live? Well, I was sitting in her apartment, so I knew where she lived, but she was saying something else. And she pointed to her head and she tapped her side of her temple and she said, Murray, I live here. I live in my mind. And I knew what she was saying because she was my mom and I knew her well, that she was able to find ways to escape from the noise of the world by just going into her own mind and reconnecting with spaces in her head that made her very comfortable. So, which are the places we can go to? Well, number one, think of the mental spaces. When's the last time you reconnected with your dreams? When you thought about that wonderful holiday that you were planning for your family, or that dream of what you're going to do when you're retiring, or what you're going to do when you've got some free time, or what you're going to do this weekend, or you wanted to build that thing or restore that car engine or whatever it might be. We need to go into those creative spaces and just kind of breathe out and breathe back in again and just relax. Secondly, we need to go to physical spaces. I don't know where you work or where you need to take time out, but sometimes, I know with me, I see clients in some nice spaces around Cape Town and Johannesburg or whatever. I'll just take a 5-minute walk in between clients and just kind of do a bit of relaxation there. Why not go for a walk on the weekend in the forest or in the woods, or go down to the beach, or take some time to do some of your sport or your exercise? There's so many of these things that are available to us that just rejuvenate our soul. And maybe you might say, well, I like to be a couch potato. I like to go and watch rugby or cricket or whatever sport I watch. But the truth of the matter is we have to be in touch with ourselves enough to know that we want to go to these places. So I make it a thing to try and exercise on every weekend when I can. I love getting in the water and surf skiing here in Fishhook. And I get out there. People are very worried that we get attacked by sharks, but it's not really as bad as all that. But nonetheless, we get out in the water and we go and paddle. And I take time to go for drives with my family, or go for walks with my wife, or take time out during the day. But I've found my central park, and I've got to go back there almost on a daily basis in today's busy world. Where's yours?